Recently, with the Marvel hype from the Doomsday teasers, I've enjoyed revisiting the latest projects from a new perspective. And in my last video, I suggested a pretty simple idea. These teasers could work perfectly as post-credit scenes that we never got. Looking back, that thought led me to a new idea. Because as we know, the Russo brothers love to scatter clues all throughout their movies. These are elements that don't stand out at first but make perfect sense years later, after several viewings. And when it hits you in the face, you think they're either extremely lucky that it fits, or they're honestly geniuses. And above all, it's an incredible playground for theorists like me. Consider this scene from Civil War, which almost mathematically foreshadows which Avengers will survive Thanos and who will get snapped. And what if I told you that the last two post-credit scenes, directed by the Russo brothers, completely messed with our heads and sent us on some major false leads? What if I also mentioned the post-credit scene? The Fantastic Four's post-credit scene actually doesn't take place in the Fantastic Four's universe, but rather in Doctor Doom's universe, played by Robert Downey Jr. And as a result, this Franklin and this Suzanne wouldn't be the ones we saw in First Step, but actually his wife and son. Champion. So yes, everything changes here, like absolutely everything, even more than you can imagine. So my friends, follow me in this new theory, a theory where we're going to explore everything they're trying to hide from us. And above all, the repercussions this could have on the story of Doom, in the next movie, Avengers. Obviously, here we're entering the spoiler zone, the danger zone. You're here with Kevin Buckhart, your favorite theorist's favorite theorist. Opening credits. Foreshadowing, as I mentioned in the introduction. The Russos and their screenwriter Steve McFeely love to play with the Marvel Extended Universe. They're the ones behind some of the best films in the franchise, starting with Captain America, The Winter Soldier, Captain America, Civil War, and of course, Avengers, Infinity War, and Endgame. We love that they're huge nerds and comic book fans just like us. Like the writers, they enjoy leaving clues about what's coming next in their story. Sometimes they open doors they'll reuse later, or bring back past elements to connect the universe. Let's look at some examples. As I said in the introduction, in Civil War at the Accords table, Rhodes, Natasha, and Steve are on the left side of the screen. Some will survive the snap, but Sam, Wanda, and Vision won't make it past Thanos. In the distance, Tony stands alone on the left. He survives, but remains isolated and gives up space. This isn't the first time. They reused Age of Ultron visions to make them real. Also, the hammer scene in that movie confirms Captain has always been worthy. Endgame ends with the long-promised dance from the first Captain America, and Red Skull becomes Guardian of the Soul Stone after vanishing with the Tesseract. But wait until you see this one. Tony Stark, throughout the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe, takes a lot of hits to his left arm, a shell during his first outing in Afghanistan. Ivan Vanko's whip is featured in Iron Man 2, in Iron Man 3, his arm causes him pain, and during his fight with Aldrich Killian, he rips it off. Finally, his cybernetic arm. In Age of Ultron, it's again the left arm of the Hulkbuster that takes the most damage from Hulk. Civil War is the first time the Russos mention the arm problem. They highlight it by having him wear a sling after the airport fight. It's a detail that follows him all the way to Spider-Man, Homecoming, where his left hand shakes, up to his confrontation with Peter, where he keeps holding his wrist. That hand, after Peter turns to dust in Infinity War, is steadied by his other hand to stop it from shaking. That's why the glove he made is different from the original. It won't be on the left hand like the Infinity Gauntlet, but on the right, he knows the gauntlet's damage but will use his stronger hand just in case. It's up to him to snap, and that's what he'll do. Yes, everything is thought out, the Russos love that, but the one we're interested in here is even more precise. Remember, at the beginning of Infinity War, Tony told Pepper that he had a dream where he had a son named Morgan, like Pepper's uncle. That conversation would lead us, 5 years later, to discover his daughter, also named Morgan. Since then, we know that dreams are a window into parallel worlds. So there's a world where one variant has a son. Many insiders have recently told us that Doom won't come from the Fantastic Four universe, contrary to what the movies suggested. But from another universe, a universe where he had a wife and a son, but again, not just anyone. In this universe, he would be the father of Franklin and the husband of a variant of Soulstorm. A universe that nearly faced destruction by an incursion, sparking his quest for revenge, or, as he saw it, reparation. And even if it might seem surprising at first, when you think about it, it's not that crazy. Unlike Thanos, who was teased for over 6 years, Doom has only appeared at Comic-Con 2024 during the film's announcement. In that famous post-credit scene, we know nothing about him, and the public knows even less. Still, he'll be central in the next 2 Avengers movies. And, normally, the creator of Battleworld, a world born from the end of the multiverse and the remnants of countless destroyed universes. If we trust the leaked concept arts, they show a medieval world shaped in his image. We can clearly see that by his side are Storm and what appears to be Franklin. So, all of this directly echoes Secret Wars from 2015, where Doom takes Reed Richards' family to make it his own, in his utopia of absolute power. In the comics, it's clear why Reed and Victor are rivals. Doom believes he's vastly superior. Let's be honest, he often is, but he envies Reed for the world's admiration, while he's viewed as a misunderstood dictator. His decision is then a way to get back at life and his lifelong rival. But here, the movie Fantastic Four First Step doesn't show any connection between the two men at all. We can imagine that Sue, in her role as a diplomat, may have already met the leader of Latveria, but Doom is remarkably absent from the entire movie. That's what's clever. It lets the post-credits scene totally mislead everyone. But then, let's ask ourselves, at what point would a character who barely knows Reed go and steal his wife and child for no reason? Admit it, it's just weird, unhealthy. Well, if we believe these rumors, the answer is actually much simpler. In another universe, the Doom universe, he lived Reed's life. With that in mind, I wondered, could the Russo brothers, who directed the post-credit scenes for Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four, have hidden another secret? There, right in your face. That's why I dissected every detail of that post-credit scene, like really every detail. And you'll tell me what you think about it already. Let's review what this passage says. A cartoon indicates the scene is happening. 4 years later, Franklin has matured. He's now a little boy who, while reading, goes to get another book from the kitchen. When she returns, we hear a deep sound. A sound we clearly associate with a portal opening. From there, Sue activates her powers and we see Victor Von Doom, who has taken off his mask, with Franklin, who puts his hand on his face. At the time, this scene was already difficult to interpret. Why doesn't Sue attack? She, who would be able to protect her son in the blink of an eye, does absolutely nothing. Why does Franklin seem so familiar with a stranger to the family? And why did they completely redo the living room decor? So, yes, I know. Galactus destroyed the apartment, but everything was rebuilt exactly as before. Everything has changed except the main room carpet, which is now orange instead of blue to match the Fantastic Four colors. So, up until now, no really satisfying answer. So I decided to go a bit further by focusing first on Sue. In this post-credit scene, she seems different from the Sue we see in the movie. First, her hair. Never in all of First Step do we see her with such straight hair. She always has volume and waves. She is very natural throughout the movie. But above all, there is a very specific detail that caught my attention. Her wedding ring. In the Fantastic Four, she wears a completely classic wedding band. In the post-credits scene, the camera highlights her left hand as she activates her powers, now wearing a ring with a green stone on her ring finger. In that same shot, her eyes seem almost emerald green, even though Vanessa Kirby's eyes are naturally blue. And what if we go even further? In the kitchen, the shot highlights a green dish, an element that never appears elsewhere in the film, with green obviously being the color associated with Dr. Doom. Alright, I know what you're thinking. On one hand, it sounds like crazy theorizing, and on the other, it's clearly confirmation bias. Honestly, I can't rely on that alone to build a solid theory, right? Let's skip the minor details open to interpretation, even though I believe nothing was accidental, and focus on something concrete. The books. Sue gives Franklin 3 books. The first is Be Very Angry Caterpillar by Eric Carle, which translates to The Hungry Caterpillar. It's about a caterpillar that always wants more. From Monday to Saturday, it eats repeatedly, eating more each day. Until finally, on Sunday, it is full and satisfied, a Sunday when it rests and transforms into a butterfly. Strangely, all of this brings us directly back to Genesis. According to several reports, Doomsday is structured around a very precise timeline, with a 7-day countdown before the end of the multiverse. A concept directly linked to the Runtime Runs Out, where we have a 1-year countdown. But in Doomsday, it will be about the 7 days of Genesis, those of the creation of the world by God. This is what created our calendar made up of 7-day weeks, 6 days of preparation. Then, on the 7th, the creation of Battleworld and the transformation into God Emperor Doom. A number was also used in the marketing campaign, apparently as part of 7 teasers before the Super Bowl. Let's continue. The second book suggested by Herbie is The Origin of Species by Gavin De Beer. A biography of Charles Darwin covering the origin of the theory of evolution, which claims that nature, not God, created man through evolution.
You're descendants of a mutant chimpanzee with a squirrel fish. Congratulations.
A film that Franklin seems to particularly enjoy. And here, God is still present in this reflection. But it also directly refers to doom. He thinks nature is imperfect, chaotic, and badly designed. And that it should be dominated by him alone, the only one capable, according to him, of saving humanity from itself. The third book, Fly When By, is a children's story where a boy witnesses a strange scene. A fly flees from a frog, thinking it's being chased. The frog says it's being hunted by a cat. The cat flees from a dog, the dog from a pig, the pig from a cow, the cow from a fox, and finally the fox, a man armed with a rifle. In the end, this man also thinks he's in danger, chased by a monster that is actually just a sheep with a tin can stuck on it, trying to get rid of it and making a frightening noise. This book represents widespread fear and hysteria. No characters try to understand what's happening. Only the little boy, who represents reason, resolves the misunderstanding. He represents facts and logic against irrational fear, but the book also shows how manipulation can trigger a chain reaction. And that's probably a central idea in Doomsday, because Doom is known for one thing. He always achieves his goal by only revealing his plan at the very end, by manipulating others, by sowing lies, and then letting them spread. These 3 books reflect the main themes of the next Avengers and key aspects of Doom's personality. But if you're not convinced, let's get back to something concrete. What the scene really shows us, concretely, without interpretation. Sue is ready to attack and in position, but holds back. She's the most powerful Fantastic Four member, as shown when protecting her son from Galactus. Objectively, there's no logical reason for her to let a man, even an acquaintance, approach Franklin like that, especially after he appeared in her living room without announcing himself. Franklin appears to know Doom. He's even fascinated by his own face. And for those who know Victor Von Doom, this is very revealing. Doom hates his face, he never shows it, and depending on the version, he's either completely disfigured or marked by a simple scar. His oversized ego can't tolerate imperfection. He sees himself as infinitely superior. He speaks about himself in the third person and doesn't let anyone, not even a child, come near him, let alone touch him. The only one who has his affection is Valeria, of whom he is the godfather. And when you look more closely here, the mask's design is different from the official visual. It's smoother, almost soft, and his hands are too. They're covered with gloves, whereas the revealed design shows a much rougher armor. I think at this point Doom's face isn't disfigured yet, and he wears the mask for different reasons. With all these elements, I come to this conclusion. We're not in the Fantastic Four universe, but in a parallel branch, a very similar universe. But where? Victor Von Doom, not Reed Richards, leads the Fantastic Four and shares Reed's life. The team's existence is shown by this Ben figurine on the couch. It's likely the tragic events will turn him into Dr. Doom, savior or ruler of a dying multiverse. According to several insiders, especially John Rocha on his show Hot, Mike Doom lost everything in his universe. Because of an incursion, his wife, his son, everything. Events that would have left his body broken, forcing him to develop an armor combining technology and magic to survive. An armor and a mask that now reflect his true nature much more than the smooth mask we see here. But it's not over, because now, let's tackle the Thunderbolts post-credit scene, Doom's manipulations. So let's start from that premise. This universe isn't the one of the Fantastic Four, it's the one of a Doom who founded these Fantastic Four. You can see it very clearly. Pedro Pascal's Reed Richards doesn't appear to understand the multiverse as well as Krasinski's version in Multiverse of Madness. It would honestly be surprising if he suddenly gained all that knowledge overnight in Doomsday. It will probably be alongside the geniuses of 616, especially Shuri, or maybe alongside this multiversal Doom, that he'll really start to understand how all of this works. Meanwhile, a ship resembling the Fantastic Four's Excelsior, described as multiversal, enters Universe 616. So, I say it looks like it because actually it's not the same ship. Well, you won't learn that here. The Fantastic Four's ship has 3 legs, while this one has 4. But there's another detail, much more striking, and yet it's been right in front of us all along. The ship seen in First Step doesn't have the Fantastic Four logo at its base at all. Instead, you can see the inscription, United States of America, on its sides. And this detail is confirmed by Kevin Feige himself, the head of Marvel, in an interview with Empire. He explains that it is indeed a Fantastic Four ship entering the Marvel Cinematic Universe in this scene, but he's not sure if it's their ship. And that's not all. In a recent Q&A, insider Alex Perez revealed a small bombshell. A user asked him this question: does Doctor Doom kidnap Franklin and use the Fantastic Four ship to escape? And Alex's answer was as follows: technically you can't steal what already belongs to you, so yes, it's intentionally mysterious. Is he talking about Franklin the ship or both? What does that imply? For me, it confirms what I've thought all along. Doom won't be presented as a classic antagonist, but rather as a messenger, the one who brings the end of the multiverse. So there's a good chance he'll intentionally get closer to the Fantastic Four, to remain near Sue, Franklin, and his remaining family. Together, they'll travel aboard his multiversal ship, or Doom will help Reed rebuild a ship similar to the one he had in his own universe in order to cross the multiverse. Together, they will eventually arrive at Universe 616, which Doom calls the most important key universe. From there, Doom will manipulate events, pushing everyone to see the X-Men's universe as the main threat. But there's a very good chance he did exactly the same thing on the other side, secretly manipulating a member of the mutants. And personally, I'd bet either on Magneto or on their version of Wanda Maximoff. But what about Doom from the Fantastic Four universe? Where is he? The Russos are likely inspired by both Time Runs Out and Avengers Forever. I mention this often, but in this run, Supreme Doom travels the multiverse to enslave worlds, collecting his variants from each to build an army under his power. And I think that's what he'll do here too. Their Doom, probably weaker, is now a pawn of Robert Downey Jr., is Doom. Yes, Doom will manipulate anyone to reach his goals. To accumulate enough power to become a true god, impose his world while saving the multiverse. But the real question remains, does that really make Doom an antagonist? A true hero? For the general public? For non-comic readers, it's hard to see why this character is so exciting. We're still discussing an egocentric psychopath who refers to himself in the third person, manipulates everyone, and is motivated solely by ego. Still, he's my favorite comic character. Does that make me an egocentric psychopath? No, I said no. Doom is great because he's basically the Marvel Universe's ultimate final boss. He's driven by a thirst for power, sure, but that thirst is almost always tied to a desire to save the day. To him, he's the best, surrounded by mediocrities. And to be honest, he's often right. That's exactly why comic book writers love him, with his megalomaniac dictator persona. Doom is usually the one with the best plan, willing to make the biggest sacrifices, and ironically, displays the most heroism. His scientific expertise makes him a mix of Iron Man and Doctor Strange. Except that he isn't limited by any moral or social considerations. He's pragmatic and does what needs to be done when it needs to be done, no matter the price to pay. And it's no coincidence that in Secret Wars, Doctor Strange teams up with him, because he knows that even he himself, as great and pragmatic as he is, doesn't have what it takes to accomplish what Doom is capable of doing. He's not alone. Reed Richards has also had to trust him, though reluctantly, since he can't sacrifice as much as Victor. What makes Doom fascinating is also his ability to surpass absolutely everyone, every threat, every rival, sometimes just to prove that he's the best. Let's take a perfect example. The run Doctor Strange and Doctor Doom, Triumph and Torment from 1989. Kamartaj holds a tournament to select the next Sorcerer Supreme. Against all odds, Doom dominates every participant until the final with Strange, but Doom's goal isn't victory. The tournament rule is simple. The winner becomes Sorcerer Supreme and must grant the runner-up a favor. Doom purposely loses to Strange to request a favor. In this case, to gain access to Hell, to go save his mother, and Strange then replies, "But why didn't you just ask?" To which Doom responds, true to himself, Doom never asks anyone for a favor. It's funny, it's absurd, it's Doom, I love it. But the real peculiarity of the ruler of Latveria is that behind these schemes, there's almost always a chilling truth. Deep down, Doom isn't really that evil. He's very pragmatic, and the movie should reveal this in a surprising way. On Twitter, Alex Perez teases elements using out-of-context GIFs. At the end of last year, he shared two specific ones. The first shows Mjolnir being lifted in Endgame just before Captain picks it up. Let's remember that he has always been worthy. The second shows a scene from Puss in Boots, where the wolf, the embodiment of death, throws a sword to the cat and tells him, pick it up. Obviously, we're on Twitter. We know that insiders like to create buzz. That's their business model. But still, just imagine the scene on a battlefield. Dr. Doom picks up Mjolnir, not to use it, but to throw it at Thor's feet before telling him, get up, I'm not done with you yet, kid. A scene that would instantly prove him worthy of the hammer and create total confusion. And this idea would connect directly to the teaser of Thor Odin to gain the strength to defeat his enemy. A scene where he has Stormbreaker instead of Mjolnir, like at the end of Love and Thunder. Which implies several things. First, he already knows his enemy, an enemy who terrifies him. Second, this enemy is probably Doom. Third, he was probably defeated by him. And finally, he lost Mjolnir in that confrontation. Yes, Doom can be worthy of the hammer because his goal isn't domination itself, but saving the multiverse from extinction. To achieve this, he must destroy and dominate everything that exists, which of course won't please our heroes. Dad. This concept isn't new. Doom's War number 3 from 2010 features a cover that could easily inspire a future movie poster. We saw in leaked marketing photos that Doom appears to be playing chess. We have an absolutely foundational scene. Doom invades Wakanda to steal its vibranium and to access the city's vibranium reserves. He must take part in a mystical ritual, standing naked before the goddess Bast, who will judge his soul's purity. A suicidal ordeal, as Bast devours anyone with impure or selfish intentions. They come from Doom's soul. He witnesses his own atrocities and is questioned about his worthiness. Doom responds with chilling sincerity.
I looked into the future. I saw millions of possible futures for humanity. In each of them, except one, humanity destroys itself. The only future where it survives and prospers is the Doom world, a world where I rule.
Doombas is shocked. She detects no lie. She knows Doom seeks power not for glory, but because he believes he's the only defense against extinction. She then replies to him, truth is repugnant, but it is the truth. Despite everything, your intention is pure, and she grants him access to the vibranium. That's exactly it. Doom sees himself as the savior, and often he is, no matter the cost. That's probably why some heroes will eventually side with him in the face of the hopelessness of the situation, especially Doctor Strange. So for me, the post-credits scene reveals Doom's universe before it collapses. The ship in Thunderbolt is his, not Pedro's Fantastic Four's. And yes, he will most likely be present at the summit meeting shown in teaser number 4. And above all, I really think we're absolutely not ready for the character who's about to dethrone Thanos as the best antagonist in the Marvel Universe. Especially since he's played by an actor as talented as Robert Downey Jr. My god, I can't wait. However, according to the latest rumors, Doomsday shouldn't explain to us why Doom has the face of Tony Stark. This revelation would be reserved for Secret Wars. And when you think about it, we don't talk about it enough. Because Doomsday is coming, sure, but Secret Wars, my friends, could be an absolutely insane movie. Just a year after the Russo brothers' next masterclass, it's great to be a Marvel fan. We never thought we'd relive what happened in 2018 and 2009. And yet, I truly believe it could be even better, even more thrilling. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this theory. Let me know in the comments. By the way, if I convinced you. And if you're discovering me, I make this kind of video every week, so feel free to follow me. And in the meantime, don't forget to stay curious. That's the secret to being happy. Bye.